everyone. Welcome to What's Trending. I'm Todd Rosenbluth here with Cynthia Murphy at VettaFi. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, it's always fun to get together.
There's so much going on in the ETF industry, both in 2025, and we're going to take a bit of a look back based on what happened with the ETF.com award. So we decided to talk on camera together, and I'm so glad we get a chance to do so.
Yeah, there's always plenty to talk about, especially this year and especially in the ETF industry.
So let's take a look at what's been going on in 2025, and then we'll get another look back as to what happened tied to the ETF.com awards. This has been we had a record year in 2024 for ETF flows. It feels like we could set a new record again in 2025, a third of the way through the year, right?
Yeah, we're already on pace for that. And we've been getting about averaging $100 billion in net inflows per month. That will put us on track for over 1.2 trillion a year, which will beat last year's record, which was already massive. So who knew volatility, jitters, concern, uncertainty would actually make us invest more and not less in ETFs? But that's what we're seeing this year.
Yeah, and so it's a combination of things that we're seeing. We are seeing people invest in U.S. equities, despite, and in fact, perhaps because of the pullback. So we're seeing money going into the S&P 500 ETFs, Vanguard 500, VU, which set a record for over $100 billion. It was the first one to cross that mark ever. It more than doubled the flows of the previous record. It is on pace to blow away that record again. So
Didn't it already get 50 billion just this year in a quarter?
So as we're recording this in late April, it is roughly $50 billion, which is just hard to believe for almost a third of the year going on. But we've also seen people moving into some of those risk-off assets, fixed income and gold in particular, right?
Yeah, it's been kind of like an interesting year to try and make sense of flows, because we're seeing amid all this uncertainty, money go U.S. equities, a lot of leverage appetite. You're like risk on plus some risk, and your risk off safety bets like gold has been having a phenomenal year. We're seeing a lot of appetite for defined outcome, buffer type of strategies. So it's almost like folks are playing both sides. Give me risk with a side of risk, and then also give me my good night of sleep through the safety. So it's a little bit of everything this year.
And the good night of safety has been, as I mentioned, as you talked about, gold, but fixed income, not only fixed income ETFs, but the most conservative, ultra short, treasury oriented ETFs. I'm enjoying writing about this topic, but it'd be nice to see something new come in. We've seen the safest fixed income strategies, whether that's floating rate treasuries or traditional treasuries, be very popular with investors this year. Before we move to one other subject, let's talk just briefly about risk on. We have seen lots of appetite for those leverage products, right? From a volume standpoint.
Yeah, it's been kind of surprising, and I'm not exactly who is buying these things, but if it has a 2x, a 3x, it's kind of in right now. So it's almost, whether that's buying the dip, whether that's betting on a sharp correction. I mean, you just hosted a webcast recently with Fidelity, and they were telling us, the high correlation between sharp market declines and sharp reversals. And, what was the stat? Like 80% of the time when you see a really sharp decline, the market rallies dramatically the next year. Is that why folks are betting on 2x potential upside? It's been really fascinating to see.
Yeah, this has been a time to get in. Well, for many people, this has been an opportunity to get in the market. They're not spooked. In fact, they're running towards ETFs.
That's right. And we're here for it.
So I want to transition to a second subject, and I want to make a clear distinction. What happened, we first started talking about what was going on in 2025. But you and I were honored to be able to be part of the ETF.com awards. We went to it even though they are a peer within the overall industry. We went with one of our partners, Neos. So thank you, Neos. Shout out to Neos for having us be a part of your celebration. And I'd love for us just not only to recap what happened in 2024, but just the celebration of the ETF industry. What we experienced yesterday was great.
Yeah, the ETF.com Awards is a phenomenal event. It was a wonderful experience. First of all, it's always great to see the industry come together. We're big believers in the ETF community and the industry. Every year there is a new number of issuers the product innovation is insane to see. Like, and when you look at the categories, to see how many interesting new products keep coming to market every year. This year, there were a few new categories altogether, like crypto ETFs being one of the big additions this year. So it was a really cool moment to celebrate really meaningful innovation we've seen in the space, and a lot of the new firms making a difference.
Yeah. So, well, I have to go back to one of the older firms that made a difference, because the ETF of the year was that Vanguard 500 ETF that hit the record of flows. And of course, it benefited from the demand in US equities and exposure to large caps. So shout out to Vanguard. VU is over 13. I think it's 14 years old now. So it is clearly not a new ETF of the year, but it was the ETF of the year. And we certainly at us at VettaFi are big believers in what Vanguard is doing and the support they're doing. But we did see innovation being recognized. So I mentioned NEOS, not just because we were sitting at the table with them. That was pretty cool. They won
took an award. Yes.
And it was pretty cool for us to be there to see that and experience that. They won as the active or best new active ETF. And what they're doing, the options-based strategies that you were talking about that are in favor given the market volatility. NEOS is a leader within that space with their tax-efficient investing standpoint. But innovation, you touched on crypto as a new category.
Yeah, it was not surprising perhaps to see like the biggest crypto ETF win the award. IBIT from iShares. I mean, that fund has been a monster in the category, but the entire category has been hugely successful. And what was fun, even they have a best ticker. There's some really amusing tickers in the ETF industry. And that went to the Van Eck Bitcoin Fund, HODL, as the ticker. So that was a fun win there.
Yeah. So tremendous innovation that still continues to go on in the ETF industry. New entrants into the ETF industry that are now part of this. So MFS won for best new issuer, I believe. Capital Group, that's only been around for 3+ years, won an award as well. Lots of innovation that's going on in the ETF industry. We're all for it. Keep bringing ETF products, ETF industry. We love it. From a research standpoint, it's the Job Security Act of 2025, right?
Yeah. And we would be remiss if we didn't shout out Rob Arnott, who won the Lifetime Achievement Award. I mean, who doesn't know Rob Arnott? Phenomenal contribution to the ETF space. I loved his brief acceptance speech. The idea of what made him so successful. Number one, hard work. Keep working hard. That pays off. Challenging your own assumptions. You may believe it's true, but is it really? So kick the tires on those assumptions and find ways to find flaws with your own work. So be your own hardest critic, because that leads to growth and innovation. And most importantly, have fun, which is what we try to do in everything that we do. So it was a great speech and a great moment to recognize Rob Arnott and the RAF.
Yeah, speaking of innovation, I mean, his approach to smart beta innovated the ETF industry decades ago, which has helped us to continue to evolve as an industry. So you're right. Rob was great. Rob was a speaker at the Exchange conference. It was great to see him again and get recognized. Maybe next year. We are not close to a lifetime award. We still have some
Thank
more.
goodness.
We still have some more years to be able to go.
We have a lot more hard work ahead.
Yes, and to have fun too.
Yeah, that's right.
On it. So we'll see you next time. Please visit etftrends.com to read my content, Cinch's content, and the rest of the great stuff that we're putting out at VettaFi. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.